Three elephants are walking across an African savanna. Each one has a poison-tipped arrow buried deep in its side. They are bleeding, they are in serious pain, and they have every reason in the world to run from anything that looks, smells, or moves like a human being. Instead, they walk directly toward a wildlife rescue center, not away from it, toward it. And here's the part that will completely stop you in your tracks. One of these elephants had previously mated with two animals that were raised and released by that exact facility. Somehow, this wounded elephant associated that specific place and the species responsible for shooting her not with danger, but with help. Stay till the end, because the last part of this video will completely change how you think about the relationship between humans and wild animals, and what some of them may understand about us that we never expected. We have spent thousands of years teaching wild animals to fear us, and they learned the lesson well. We hunted them. We displaced them, we poisoned them, we turned their forests into farmland and their oceans into fishing nets. The fear wild animals feel around humans is not an accident. It is ancient, earned, and evolutionarily justified. It is a survival response, refined across countless generations of animals that learned the hard way. The ones that came too close to humans did not survive to teach their children caution. So why, against every instinct, against every lesson built into their bodies, do some wild animals occasionally turn toward us when everything goes wrong? Act 1. The bird that hired a human. Let us start with the most scientifically documented case of all. A small bird found across sub-Saharan Africa called the greater honey guide has a problem. It loves beeswax and bee larvae more than almost anything else, but it physically cannot break into a beehive on its own. Bees are dangerous. Hives are defended by thousands of stinging insects, and a small bird has no way past that. Humans, on the other hand, have figured out over generations how to use fire and tools to safely open a hive and extract honey. So the honey guide solved both problems at once. It finds the hidden beehive using its own specialized senses. Then it flies toward a human honey hunter, calls loudly and persistently, and physically leads that person through difficult terrain directly to the nest. The human opens the hive and takes the honey. The bird gets the wax and larva left behind. A perfect division of labor between two completely different species. But here's the remarkable part. In 2016, researcher Dr. Claire Spottiswoode and her team from Cambridge University actually tested this relationship scientifically in Mozambique. Their results were published in the journal Science. Local honey hunters use a very specific vocal call passed down through generations, designed specifically to signal cooperation to a honey guide. When researchers played that exact call, the bird's willingness to engage and lead humans to a hive doubled. The overall probability of successfully finding a nest jumped from 17% all the way to 54%. The bird was not reacting to random noise. It was recognizing one specific human signal and attaching real, actionable meaning to it. This particular sound means this particular human wants to cooperate with me right now. This is one of the only documented examples on Earth of a genuinely wild, completely undomesticated animal engaging in active, learned, mutually beneficial cooperation with humans through real two-way communication. Not a pet, not trained by a handler with treats, a free-living, wild bird that figured out humans are useful partners and developed a functioning communication channel to recruit them. Act 2. When wild animals come asking. The documented cases stretch across species, continents, and situations, and they share one common thread that makes them impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Off the coast of Hawaii, a bottlenose dolphin approached a group of scuba divers in a way that was immediately recognizable as wrong. Swimming awkwardly, circling repeatedly, refusing to leave. Diving instructor Keller Leros stayed still long enough to understand why. The dolphin had a fishhook embedded in its body, with fishing line wound tightly around it, restricting its ability to breathe and swim. Leros carefully removed the hook and cut away the line. When he finished, the dolphin did not bolt. It surfaced, turned back toward him, and held that position for a moment, before finally swimming away. In Russia, a raven perched outside a rural house and called loudly and persistently for over an hour. When someone finally came outside, they found the bird with 4 porcupine quills embedded in its face and wing. The raven allowed a complete stranger, a member of the species it should biologically fear most, to come close enough to remove all 4 quills one by one. In India, a mother elephant whose calf had fallen into a deep, man-made watering hole approached a nearby road and made what observers described as clear, repeated attempts to communicate with passing humans. She eventually led a group of people back to the hole. They pulled her calf out. She waited the entire time. Off the coast of Australia, a whale shark roughly the size of a school bus swam directly up to a fishing boat and floated completely still for a full 20 minutes, while a diver carefully removed a rope wound tightly around its body. No restraints, no anesthesia, no guarantee the animal would not simply leave. It stayed. In Alaska, 4 wild deer, exhausted from swimming through icy waters, spotted a distant boat and swam deliberately toward it, behavior that runs against every instinct a wild deer possesses around unfamiliar humans on an unfamiliar vessel. They were pulled aboard. In Russia again, a fox wandered up to a group of men with its head completely trapped inside a glass jar, stood in front of them, and waited while one man removed the jar by hand. It trotted off immediately after, pausing briefly to look back before disappearing into the forest. Act 3. What is actually happening inside their minds? So, what is going on inside the brain of a wild animal when it makes this choice? Researchers who study animal cognition have offered several explanations, and they do not all require the same level of sophisticated thinking. The simplest explanation is learned association. An animal has at some point experienced humans helping, or seen it happen to another animal nearby, and carries that memory into a crisis. No deep reasoning required, just a reinforced behavioral link. But the honey guide suggests something more sophisticated is possible. That bird is not simply associating humans with past relief. It is actively recognizing a specific signal as meaning something specific and responding to that meaning with intentional, cooperative behavior. Some researchers believe the clearest evidence of this more sophisticated understanding comes from studies on dogs. Using mobile eye tracking technology, scientists found that dogs respond dramatically more strongly when a human combines pointing with direct eye contact than when either signal appears alone. The dog is not just reacting to motion, it is reading deliberate communication. It is interpreting the gesture as, this human is intentionally trying to tell me something specific right now. If wild animals can develop even a limited version of this understanding, that humans are separate beings with their own capabilities who can solve problems that the animal cannot, then approaching a human in a crisis is not an accident or a fluke. It is a calculated decision. Here is what all of these cases have in common. The animal's default fear response, the one carved into it across thousands of generations of evolutionary pressure, was overridden by something stronger. Not by trust, not by affection, but by a moment of genuine desperation in which the risk of approaching a human became smaller than the certainty of what would happen if it did nothing at all. And in that moment, some wild animals arrive at the same conclusion independently. A bottlenose dolphin, a raven, an elephant, a whale shark, a fox, a deer, with nothing in common except the specific crisis they found themselves in. When everything else fails and the pain is too much to carry alone, some creatures on this planet look at the most dangerous predator in the history of life on Earth, and they walk toward it anyway. Because sometimes, against every instinct and every lesson their species ever learned about us, we turn out to be exactly what they in.